The human body is designed around movement, not just muscles and joints, but circulation. Every minute, blood travels thousands of miles through an intricate vascular network, delivering oxygen, stabilizing temperature, and carrying nutrients that every organ depends on. When this flow remains smooth, the process is invisible. You don't feel it, and you don't think about it. It simply sustains you. But when circulation begins to weaken, the body rarely announces it dramatically. Instead, it sends subtle signals, small physical changes that are easy to dismiss as fatigue, aging, or everyday strain. Physicians often pay close attention to these early signs because blood flow is not just about comfort. It is about cellular survival. Tissues that consistently receive less oxygen do not perform at their best. What makes circulatory changes particularly deceptive is how gradually they can develop. The body is remarkably skilled at compensating, rerouting blood through alternative vessels when needed. For a time, this adaptation protects you, until it doesn't. A vascular specialist once explained it this way: the circulation problems rarely begin as emergencies. They begin as whispers. Recognizing those whispers early can matter more than most people realize, because impaired blood flow is often linked to underlying vascular strain, sometimes years before more serious conditions appear. In this video, we will walk through 7 body changes that physicians are trained to notice, signs that may suggest your circulation is not moving as efficiently as it should. The first signal often appears in a place people least associate with vascular health: your extremities. Because when blood supply becomes limited, the body prioritizes vital organs, and the furthest regions feel it first. Temperature in the hands and feet is not random. It is largely a reflection of how effectively blood is reaching the smallest vessels. When circulation is strong, warm blood flows easily into these distant tissues, maintaining comfort even in mildly cool environments. But when blood flow becomes restricted, the body begins conserving heat for critical organs such as the brain and heart. The extremities receive less. The result is often noticeable: hands that remain cold in normal room temperatures, feet that take unusually long to warm under blankets, fingers that feel stiff rather than flexible. This is not always cause for alarm. Temporary cold exposure can produce the same effect. What draws medical attention is persistence, especially when warmth does not return quickly. One condition physicians sometimes evaluate in these cases is peripheral artery disease, where narrowed arteries limit blood delivery to the limbs. Another is Raynaud's phenomenon, a vascular response in which small arteries briefly constrict, reducing circulation to the fingers and toes. In both situations, the body is not malfunctioning. It is reacting to reduced flow capacity. You may even notice subtle color changes: pale or white fingertips, a bluish tint, delayed return to pink after pressure. These shifts occur because oxygen-rich blood is arriving more slowly than the tissue prefers. A circulatory physician once noted, "The extremities are often the earliest indicators of vascular efficiency." Yet temperature changes are only one surface signal. Because when blood struggles to reach tissue consistently, the skin itself can begin revealing clues, sometimes before discomfort appears. And the next sign is one many people overlook, assuming it is purely cosmetic, but your skin is one of the most circulation-sensitive organs you have. Healthy skin is quietly supported by circulation. Each moment, oxygen-rich blood moves through tiny vessels beneath the surface, giving skin its natural tone and vitality. When flow is steady, color appears consistent. But when circulation becomes less efficient, the skin may begin to look different, sometimes subtly enough that only gradual comparison reveals it. A noticeable loss of warmth in skin tone, areas that appear unusually pale, or in some cases, a faint bluish tint, especially around the lips, fingertips, or nail beds. Clinically, this bluish coloration is known as cyanosis. It can occur when blood carries less oxygen than tissues require, allowing darker, oxygen-poor blood to become more visible through the skin. This is not always dramatic. Often it is mild, most visible in cooler temperatures when vessels naturally narrow. But physicians pay attention when the color change persists beyond environmental triggers. Why? Because skin is highly vascular. When circulation shifts, the skin frequently reflects it earlier than deeper organs. A vascular specialist once remarked, "If you want to observe circulation without imaging, start with the skin. It rarely hides the truth. You might also notice that minor cuts take longer to regain normal color, or that pressure marks linger before fading. These are small observations, but biologically meaningful. Yet circulation does more than influence temperature and color. It directly affects how efficiently tissue repairs itself. And when blood flow is reduced, the body's ability to heal can quietly slow, sometimes turning very small injuries into unexpectedly long recoveries. Because the next signal is not about how the skin looks, it is about how long it takes to recover. Healing is one of the body's most circulation-dependent processes. When skin is injured, blood immediately delivers platelets, oxygen, immune cells, and structural proteins, everything required to rebuild damaged tissue. With strong circulation, this response is efficient and often unnoticed. But when blood flow is reduced, repair becomes slower. Not dramatically at first, just delayed. You might see a small cut linger longer than it once did, a scrape that stays tender, bruising that fades more gradually. Physicians often evaluate persistent slow healing because it can signal that tissue is not receiving optimal oxygen delivery. One condition frequently associated with impaired repair is peripheral artery disease, where narrowed arteries limit how easily blood reaches the limbs. Another factor doctors sometimes consider is chronic venous insufficiency, a state in which blood struggles to return efficiently from the legs, allowing fluid to pool and slowing the healing environment. The biology is straightforward: less oxygen, right arrow, slower cellular work. Slower cellular work, right arrow, delayed repair. A wound care specialist once summarized it clearly. A tissue can only rebuild as fast as circulation allows. What makes this sign important is persistence. Everyone heals at slightly different speeds, but when recovery begins stretching noticeably longer than your personal norm, physicians tend to look deeper. Because circulation does more than influence healing. It also fuels your muscles. Every step, every movement, every climb depends on a steady supply of oxygen-rich blood. And when that supply struggles to keep pace, the body often responds with a sensation many people misinterpret as simple fatigue. But this next signal is not always about being tired. It is about muscles quietly asking for more blood than they are receiving. Muscles are built for movement, but movement requires oxygen. Each time you walk, climb stairs, or even increase your pace slightly, your muscles call for more blood. Arteries normally respond by widening, allowing greater flow to meet the demand. When circulation is reduced, however, that extra supply may not arrive fast enough. The result is a distinctive kind of discomfort, a tightening in the calves, a deep aching sensation, cramping that appears during activity, but eases once you stop. Clinically, this pattern is often referred to as claudication. It occurs when muscles briefly operate with less oxygen than they prefer. Importantly, this is not the same as soreness after exercise. It is more predictable, emerging with exertion, fading with rest. Physicians frequently evaluate this symptom because it can point toward underlying vascular narrowing, sometimes related to atherosclerosis, a process in which arteries gradually stiffen or constrict. A cardiology professor once explained it simply: a pain during movement is often the muscle's way of signaling a supply problem. What makes this sign particularly useful medically is its consistency. The body tends to repeat the pattern, offering a clue that circulation may not be keeping pace with physical demand. Yet muscles are not the only tissues sensitive to blood flow. Nerves depend on it just as deeply, and when their supply fluctuates, the signals they send can begin to feel unusual. Many people describe the next change casually without realizing it can be vascular in origin, a sensation so common it is often ignored until it becomes frequent: pins and needles. Most people have experienced temporary tingling, the familiar sensation that appears after sitting awkwardly or placing pressure on a limb for too long. In those moments, blood flow and nerve signaling are briefly compressed. Once position changes, circulation returns, and the feeling fades. But when tingling begins appearing more often, without an obvious mechanical cause, physicians sometimes look at circulation as a possible contributor. Nerves rely heavily on a steady oxygen supply. When blood delivery fluctuates, nerve signals can become slightly unstable, producing sensations such as light tingling, subtle numbness, a faint electric feeling, reduced sensitivity in fingers or toes. This state is medically described as paresthesia. It does not automatically indicate a serious condition. In many cases, the cause is temporary. One condition clinicians may evaluate in this context is peripheral neuropathy, where nerve function becomes less reliable, occasionally linked to circulation changes. A neurologist once noted, "The nerves are remarkably resilient, but they are never indifferent to oxygen supply." What makes this sign important is frequency. An isolated episode is rarely meaningful. A repeating pattern invites closer attention, yet circulation influences more than sensation. It also shapes how energy is distributed across the body, including the brain. And when blood flow becomes less efficient, some people begin noticing a form of tiredness that rest alone does not fully explain, not the fatigue of a long day, but a quieter, more persistent heaviness.